All right, fam. Things are about to get really technical. I'm going to have to dig into our brains a little bit. Remember those old protocols when it comes to our personal training, and we're going to apply them to a group training aspect. So lots of our members have injuries and nagging issues with their joints and muscles, as well as we do a great job of modifying. Sometimes we overuse the same modifications. And now it's really time to elevate our value by helping members not only modify around injuries, but to address those issues during class and help them strengthen from the inside out. So I saw a member the other day in my studio, and she had horrible knee problems. She couldn't do any lunges. She couldn't do any squats. There was like 5 sessions in a row she just couldn't do. And I gave her a hinge. My co-coach gave her a hinge. She got another hinge. And it was like, okay, she's doing the same movement for the same muscle group over and over again. We can do a little bit better. We can give her something so she can get stronger. She can get full enjoyment out of these 45 minutes, and she can work on this issue. So we want to adapt exercises to help minimize the stress on those injured areas while still providing challenges and an effective workout. We're not going to change the entire workout for them. We don't have to come up with a whole new program, right? We want to just help them work on exercises that are going to help them with their injuries without changing the whole dynamic of the workout. And there's very skillful ways to do that. We can do that with activation drills during our warm-up, during our intro. If they come in a few minutes early, they can do activation drills for those ailing joint, those pain areas, right? We want to help them increase and improve that musculature around those areas. As they're doing these movements, if they are experiencing pain, probably want to move away from that movement because we want them to feel challenged by it, but not hurt by it. We would definitely want to increase their mobility and range of motion. Identify imbalances, and I bet we've all seen a lot of imbalances during Lone Star. That's what it's for, right? We want to identify those imbalances to help prevent the risk of injury. Lots of times members are doing exercises correctly, but there's a muscular imbalance, so they're doing it a little bit wrong, and they are building upon that muscular imbalance, which ultimately will lead to an injury at some point. So when we're giving them these modifications, these corrective exercises, we want to be very careful how we're progressing them. Right? If you're doing something like a hip bridge because you can't do squats, let's go for more time under tension. Let's add a little bit of tempo before we just throw a 45-pound plate on top of them, and then another 45-pound plate. Let them really understand the movement and all the dynamics of it before we load it up even further. We're really looking to implant these exercises for a whole holistic approach to those 45 minutes. So pairing up these exercises with their normal station so they kind of complement each other. Hey, every time I roll my lats, I'm getting a better press in. I'm able to keep my rib cage down as I press up. If you know those members who have knee injuries, shoulder, elbow, wrist, hips, whatever it is, you know they're coming through your class, you've checked your class list, you can plan for these things. You can have things ready to go for them, those extra little pieces of equipment, like I'll show you guys how to use today, supersets within those stations. So you'll be going through your regular lift or your regular exercise, and then boom, during that break, we can get into that corrective exercise. Or if we have multiple sets at that station, maybe your first set is that corrective exercise, you're increasing that mobility, you're getting that neuromuscular connection, and then we're going to build upon it from there. Always give actionable feedback. You should be asking members, how does this feel? Does this hurt? Does this give you pain? If there is a pain scale on a 1 to 10, where is it at there? What range of motion feels good? What range of motion feels bad? I'm not asking you guys to all of a sudden become physical therapists to diagnose pain, diagnose injury. I'm asking you to use your skills, use your knowledge base that you have to employ appropriate exercise techniques and corrective exercise techniques for members that are hurting. This is just going to add value to you. One of these injuries and one of these things we see a lot is knee valgus. This is the knees caving in. One of the biggest exercises where I see this are on box step-ups. And it's usually not as we're stepping up. I see Christy shaking her head, yup. It's usually not as we're stepping up. It's as they're coming down. You see that knee kind of cave way in, or on our box jumps, we kind of see the same thing. Those knees kind of buckle in right before they explode up. This comes from those weaker glutes, those weaker adductors. So one of the ways we can help with this, in between those box jumps or in between those step-ups, lateral mini band walks. Even if they have a weight next to them, just doing some adduction, moving that leg out to the side, keeping their heels tucked, leading with their heel. The lateral mini band walks is going to attack the glute min and the glute med. These are really responsible for that adduction, all right? Glute bridges with knee adduction. That's going to take a mini band over the knee as we bridge up and then just shoot those knees out towards the wall. If they have mini bands at home, they're very cheap, they're affordable, they're like $7 on Amazon. So recommend a member to buy them and try and practice these exercises at home. So you're giving them a little bit of homework, you're giving them an activation to do before they do these exercises and something to help manage the pain while the workout's going on. Romanian deadlifts. We're going to get into this one. I'm going to get up and show you guys this one. Obviously, we all know how to hinge very well. We do our RDL. One of the biggest things I see with our Romanian deadlift is that knee caving in or staying exactly where it's supposed to be. Sometimes we put the mini band on the knee. We see that in the workouts, and we're forcing those knees out. If we're getting to our V stance here, I always tell members to get to a little bit of a wider V stance to really initiate driving those knees out so they can feel that whole hamstring and glute group working, and they can work their glute min and glute med as well. So practice and push a little bit of more adduction as we're pushing those knees apart. And you can even put your hand right next to that. Just drive your knee into my hand as you hinge over at the waist. Focus on your hinge, keeping your core tight, your glute. Just try to touch your knee to my hand as you're hinging over there. Patellofemoral syndrome, probably one of the most common knee issue we will see in the gym, right? This is the improper tracking of the patella up your quadriceps tendon up into your quad. So that instead of your patella going straight up and down like it's supposed to, usually pulls out to the side or inwards, and it can cause a lot of pain. We call this runner's knee. The best exercise for patellofemoral syndrome is going to be your terminal knee extension. This is really going to work your VMO. Remember, there's 4 parts of your quad: your vastus medialis, your vastus lateralis, your vastus intermedius, and last one,
Rectus femoris.
Yeah, let's go. All right. Terminal knee extension is a very easy exercise to do. We can do this with a weight or body weight. It depends on that member and their pain. The way I like to do it the most is to take a mini band and just place it over their shins. Right? You're going to have them get into that good staggered stance, and on that knee that's injured, you're just going to tell them to drive that heel down to the ground and really just squeeze their quad. So as they're driving their heel down, all they're trying to do is just make sure their knee is tracking upward and getting as much quad engagement as possible. Really trying to squeeze right here. If they turn their foot slightly inward, they'll get a little bit more of that VMO, which will help that patella track right up their quadricep. Foam rolling, obviously the quadriceps and the IG band in between sets when we have our squats or stagger stance squats, whatever they are, is going to be super helpful as well. Loosening those muscles in between, releasing that myofascial tissue. A member can definitely carry a foam roller around with them from station to station and continue to roll and get looser and looser as the workout goes on. So they ultimately leaving feeling stronger, loose, and ready to go, ready to crush the next workout. Right? We can use foam rollers as warm-ups, recovery, and in sessions as well. Clamshell, give you a good demo here. You really want to initiate driving that bottom hip, and most members will feel this, driving that bottom hip into the floor or that bottom knee into the floor as much as they're trying to bridge up. They may not feel on the top side if there's no band attached. If there is a band attached, you're going to feel on the top too, and they don't have to move fast through this, right? They should be trying to slow it up, hold it for a second or two, and slowly come back down with control. The more time under tension, the stronger they're going to get from it, right? These are, once again, addressing issues around that knee, around that problem that are going to help it get stronger over time and help with that patellofemoral syndrome. Let's talk about the ankle. Lots of times we see people struggling with their squats, and it's usually because of very limited dorsiflexion. Runners like me and athletes like me have rolled their ankles 1,000 times. Sometimes the squats can look a little funky. Obviously, stretching the calves, your gastrocnemius, your soleus, right, those calf muscles, it's going to be ideal for your ankle stability and your ankle support. You have your runner stretch where you're putting your foot up on a wall, just leaning forward while you're keeping your heel down. This is going to help increase mobility in that ankle. You can do that with your foot on top of a dumbbell right there at that station. One of the great ways to increase ankle stability is by working your anterior tibialis. Working your anterior tibialis is also very good for your knee as well. All right. If you don't know what your anterior tib is, it's this front muscle right here, right in front of your shin. I do this with members all the time in the studio, especially if they're experiencing knee pain or have some ankle stability issues, is have them put their foot right into the middle of one of these small Y-bells. They're going to let their foot kind of just drop, and just try to raise it up as much as they can and let it down with control. They're going to get a nice burn going there. It's going to be a nice shake going on. If they don't have something like a Y-bell at home, a wet towel, team. You take a soaking wet towel, you put it on your foot, you let it hang, move it up and down. That's a little bit of weight. That's easy resistance. There is a lot going on with our hips. Everybody's hips are shaped differently. Everybody's hips move a little bit differently, and there's a lot of muscles going on. Your glute med, your glute max, your adductor brevis, adductor longus, your gracilis, your pectineus, your TFL, your iliaxis, your psoas major, all responsible for a different part of range of motion, right? One of the best way to really activate and feel those hips, right, especially when we're having some hip issues, is that butterfly glute bridge. I'm going to perform one here for you, or a couple of reps here for you. Just like our normal hip bridge, but we're going to be in that butterfly position as if we were doing a butterfly sit-up. We're squeezing those feet together. Our abductors are going to be engaged as we bridge up. Whole time too, we're thinking hips are tucked in, the abs are tight, the core is very tight. We're going to drill our feet into the floor and raise those hips up as much as possible. Squeezing the glutes extremely tight, going down nice and slow with control. When those glutes touch again, you want to have them drive back up. If we're doing regular glute bridges and they're really good, whether they have their feet close or wide, trying to target their hamstring or glutes, in between sets, this is another good exercise to kind of add in. Just go to a butterfly, maybe hold it up for half of that break, and then slowly release it and get back into your regular hip bridges. The hip hike is something I'm going to show you as well. Lots of times you'll see people kind of shift, or one hip is lower than the other. And if we take a small box here, tell them to lead with their heel. Drive that heel down as much as possible while keeping their hands even with their hips, and then shoot back up. Extend that knee as hard as they can. So they're going to push your butt back, trying to drive that heel down. As soon as that heel touches the floor, then extend that knee and try to stand right back up. This is something great to do in between sets when we step ups, when we're seeing that hip turn way out to the side as they bring their foot up on top of the box, right? This is going to teach more of that straight up and down angle, keeping in the right plane of motion. We also have our bird dog. Our bird dog is going to really be for a lot for the core and that iliopsoas that runs deep within there as well. There's lots of variations, but you always know you want to extend that opposite arm, opposite leg, and you're really looking for that great big hip extension, right? We can add some things to this, like some abduction or some adduction, or some circles, or some waves, or some isometric holds, just to get a little bit more activity from those glutes and to get some more hip and glute stability. The shoulder is my absolute favorite because it's my problem as well. I know lots of us have shoulder issues. I'm currently dealing with the shoulder impingement, just like Juddy, and I'm trying to overcome it. And I'm doing a lot of these exercises. A great way to identify a shoulder impingement with a person is have them take their hand, wrap it across their shoulder, place your hand on their elbow, and tell them to drive it up as hard as possible. If they're able to drive it up and push up your hand and they're experiencing no pain, they're probably okay. Their shoulder's just a little sore. Tell them to get some protein in, show them a few shoulder stretches, and they're okay. If they're feeling pain from that initial, they probably have definitely a really bad shoulder impingement. One of the first things we can do to help them relieve some of that shoulder pressure, besides just modifying the angle, if they have a overhead press, so we can always modify to a neutral grip or wider grip, whatever feels better for them, is going to be some pendulums. Taking a heavyweight kettlebell, your dumbbell, hinging over at the waist, letting that shoulder pull out the socket and moving it in small circles, clockwise and then counterclockwise. Doing this in between sets, this is a great move to increase that subacromial space between your shoulder and your AC joint. All right, also just feels awesome. Another good one is just internal and external rotations, right? So we can take our mini band, place it right across the wrist, pinning those elbows together, and go through some external rotations. But really try to keep those elbows pinned as we rotate one shoulder out to the side as much as possible. The big muscles we're working on within our shoulder are our rotator cuff muscles. Supraspinatus, teres minor, interspinatus, and your subscapularis, right? Remember those rotator cuff muscles. They're all responsible for stability within your shoulder more than power or strength within your shoulder. Your power or strength muscles on your shoulder are going to be your rear delts, your front delts, and your medial delts. But your rotator cuff that's really good there in your shoulder to provide it stability. These pulls are going to be another great exercise for building that shoulder stability and helping with that shoulder impingement. Grabbing that mini band or that power band, pulling it right into the face, those nice high elbows, while still forcing your shoulders back and down, depressing those shoulders rather than elevating them. Same thing with our band pull-up bars, pulling that mini band, that long band right into the chest. This is going to target those rear delts, those upper and lower traps, right? As we're forcing those shoulders back and down, trying to squeeze those shoulder blades together, and a nice slow release as we come back to the front. Before we tell, hey, you can't press today, just go ahead and do bicep curls. Have them try one of these exercises and see if that alleviates a little bit of pressure, alleviates a little bit of tension, and then go into that normal exercise. We see lots of elbow pain in the studio as well, especially as we're doing a lot more pressing and pulling. Wrist extension, right? Your elbow, your radial ulnar joint. We've got a lot of funky muscles going on in there. We'll get into them, but lots of it is going to have to do with wrist extension, wrist flexion, pronation, supination. This is a muscle that you can foam roll as well. You can have a member roll their joints, you roll their forearm. You can absolutely roll out your forearm, and it will help loosen it up. Taking a light dumbbell, holding it straight out, and really just trying to flex up your wrist as much as possible. This is going to work your biceps brachialis and your brachialis itself. Also with pronation and supination of your forearm as well. We really don't want to move at the shoulder for this one, but more at just your elbow, right? You want to move just inwards, outwards, once ahead, just hitting your biceps brachii. That's that top muscle right here. I got tennis elbow from holding my oldest child in my right hand, and then I got it again for holding my youngest in my left hand. And literally just going through pronation and supination all day long helped it alleviate within a week or two. A lot of it is extremely similar when it comes to golfer's elbows and tennis elbow. Your flexors ulna and your flexors radius are going to be these muscles right here on the inside of your forearm. All right, this is where people get that kind of like Popeye looking forearm there. These muscles get very tight. These cause a lot of pain, usually when it comes to pronation, supination, and wrist extension, wrist flexion. Eccentrically working wrist flexion is really good as well. So we're taking palms up, flexing the wrist, and then slowly letting it down and letting it stretch, right? This, once again, with a light weight, we can do this in between sets with something like a barbell, right? You're hitting your bicep curls with your nice straight wrists. Then you're holding it maybe at a 90 here. You're flexing that wrist, and then you're just kind of letting it open back up. We can continue to use our dumbbells to do pronation and supination, or work on some good old wrist flexion and just trying to drive those knuckles up towards the ceiling as our palms are facing down. Carpal tunnel is something we see a lot. We have a lot of people who have sedentary jobs and they type all day and on the computer all day. So getting down for push-ups, yes, hand them a Y belt if it's easier to do push-ups on something supported or some dumbbells, right? Or a box. This is awesome. But let's help them work around this issue as well, or work through this issue. Some simple wrist stretches are going to be good. Pulling back those fingertips with a nice straight arm. That's your wrist extension, driving it down for your wrist flexion. Grip strength is something we're always working on in the studio. I like how in this last phase call, we're going to call on members to really hold on to their weights in between sets and just get right back to it. This is going to help increase grip strength as well. Members don't always need to be death gripping weights as well. So just be mindful of that, because sometimes you really want to have a good grip. Your RDL, your deadlifts, right? We need a great grip for that. Something like a bicep curl, we can be probably a little bit easier on our grip as we're pulling it up to our shoulders. I want to show you guys nerve gliding. So lots of times with wrist pain and carpal tunnel syndrome, nerve gliding is going to be something that's going to provide some good immediate relief. So you just kind of press your hands together as hard as you can, and then you slide them right down the center of your chest so you feel your wrist stretch, and you should feel some tingling going through your fingertips. You're going to release slowly and then come right back up. This is going to feel crazy. It almost makes you feel like, oh, wait, do I have carpal tunnel syndrome? Because it feels so nuts. But driving your hands down, you're going to feel all your wrist extensors and wrist flexors kind of stretch out a little bit, and then bringing them back together. You're going to feel that blood flow, that volume increase back into your wrists and to your hands. The greater value we add by integrating these corrective exercises is the greater experience a member is going to get from taking our 45-minute class. It's going to empower them to not only overcome their injuries, but to work through it and build long-lasting strength. This is how we develop and build rapport between our community. Even if you've never met that member before, This is how you get them to understand your value as a coach and understand the value of being an F45 member as well. Team, get out there, try them out this week. Give them a little bit of homework. Tell them to do it in between sets. Bust out a couple mini bands with you, some smaller dumbbells. If little hip drills as they're waiting in between sets. This is going to make your session better, their session better, and ultimately their lives better.